On your Daily Detroit, the Detroit Lions start their season Thursday against the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Are we predicting a roar or a whimper for 2023? A federal court rules on property seizures in Wayne County. What is the most popular car in Michigan? The cannabis-related real estate market seems to be cooling. And do we need another celebrity chicken joint? Even if it is Shaq's, we have got a super full show for you. From a wet and drippy Paris of the Midwest, this is your Daily Detroit, sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan for Wednesday, September 6th, 2023. I'm Jairus Days, and thanks to the holiday, our show lineup is a little different. First, and from the West Side, Mr. Norris Howard, Mr. Fantastic himself. How are you, sir?
What's going on, man? I'm glad to be back, having a real chill Tuesday, or Wednesday, excuse me. A real chill Wednesday.
The holidays always mess us up, right?
Always mess me up, man.
And second, from the East Side, Mr. Fletcher, Sharpe, Mr. Football. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, it's rainy outside, but considering where I was Monday, it's a lot less wetter than that.
That's right. Yeah, you were at the Hamtramck Yacht Club canoe races. I saw you out there, snapped a couple pictures. I'm sorry you didn't win, man.
Yeah, we took second place. We were on our way to winning it, but then our boat broke, and we were unable to overcome that in the final. I'm not going to sit here and say I love to lose, but losing's a part of stuff. It's also a very whimsical event. But we will be back next year to win that wheel. I can guarantee that. I'm putting that 100% toes down right now.
My boat broke in Hamtramck is a phrase I didn't think I would ever think about, but there you go. All right, so we've got a lot to get through. Let's get into it. The Lions, guys, I want to talk to you about the season and the game ahead. Let's talk about Kansas City away, the focus, the TV cameras, Thursday night, television, all the things. Are the Lions being fed too well? The Lions?
Let me just say this, all right? I don't watch the NFL. I have deep political reasons as to why I no longer watch the NFL. I haven't watched the NFL for many years, but here's what I will say. My family, and my father in particular, is a huge Lions fan, has been for his entire life. And a part of me wants to see the team win because I want to see my father have sports joy before he leaves this mortal coil. I don't think that will happen. I think having the first match against the Chiefs, the defending Super Bowl champions, is just going to be tough. I think it's going to be a rough start to the season. But do they look better? Sure. I just still have the feeling that it's same old Lions. We can be as excited as we want to be, but I just feel like for as long as they're, owned by the Fords, I don't see what changes.
6.5 point spread, Fletcher, Sharpe. The prediction with the money people is Chiefs 34, Lions 28. How does that sound to you?
Probably not 34, but I still think the Lions lose this one. The Chiefs are really good. They have Patrick Mahomes, who honestly is like watching someone play Madden with a real person. He has these no-look passes. He drops back and just flicks his wrist. The ball goes 45 yards on a rope. Just amazing quarterback. But they will potentially be without their starting tight end, Travis Kelce, who is really good and probably for the better because we don't really want to watch him do the gritty in the end zone after catching a touchdown. Without him, that kind of takes out part of their offense. They'll be missing maybe another receiver, I think, takes out another part of their offense. But again, Patrick Mahomes is really good. Last year, the Lions struggled with their secondary on defense. They'd get pressure, they'd get whatever, then the quarterback would throw a ball up, and it happened to fall in the receiver's hands. Patrick Mahomes is not just some quarterback. His offense is not just some offense full of random receivers. So you really can't do that. I think the offense will be a little bit better. I don't think it's going to really do much for them this game. People think they're going to make the playoffs this year. So I said I'm not sure. I think they're still on the fringe. I don't think that's really an improvement for most people. But they're going to give people a good show Thursday, which I think is what most of the league wants, is a good show. I don't think people are looking to see the Chiefs get dethroned yet, but people want to see people challenge them. I think the Lions will do a good job of making it a game, but I don't see them coming away 1-0 after Thursday night.
Yeah, I'm just looking for a good performance on this one. I am overall positive about the season. I think that the rest of our division is kind of weak. I think that we have a real chance at the first time since division realignment of taking the NFC North. I think it's a real possibility. As far as the Chiefs, I just want to see a strong showing. I would love to see a win, 100%. But I hear everything that you're saying. I see a few different ways it could happen, but if I'm being realistic, I'm with you, Fletcher, on the first game. But season-wide, I mean, I think this could be a strong year, but we're going to know in the first few games if that momentum from last year carried over. Let's get into some harder news. A federal appellate panel unanimously ruled last week that Detroit's practice of seizing people's cars for extended periods without a timely chance for owners to get a hearing violates their 14th Amendment right to due process. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit Court agreed that Wayne County has been violating the Constitution when it seized vehicles crucial for transportation and livelihoods without a prompt process. People have been waiting for hearings for a very long time. This ruling is a big win for more of a libertarian view of things, in that the government shouldn't be able to do this sort of thing. Reason reports that Wayne County seized more than 2,600 vehicles between 2017 and 2019 and took in more than $1.2 million in asset forfeiture revenues. Nearly 20% of those seizures were not accompanied by a criminal conviction, and most of those cases, no one was even charged with a crime. I've heard stories into the thousands of dollars of people that they've had to pay to get their cars out, people, dealing with mental challenges, people dealing with disputes and things like that. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, we're going to grab your car and we're going to hold it. And we're just going to charge you forever to get out. We're not actually going to give you a fair hearing. This has been a problem in Wayne County for a long time. I've heard issues about this for a long time. And I expect if this ruling holds, it kind of may reverberate through. But I also think law enforcement officials are kind of going to try to find every way they can to grab these cars. There's a lot of money being made off of towing, all this stuff in Wayne County. And it's kind of a scourge. I know it's not a popular thing for some to say in communities, but it's a scourge. I think it really preys upon people who, frankly, usually don't have the money.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting parts about this case is that you brought up at the very end there is I believe it is something that opens the door to just re-examining the civil forfeiture laws in the country in general. For those who are unfamiliar, civil forfeiture basically is if you're suspected of a crime, law enforcement authorities are able to seize items that they believe were used as a part of that suspected crime. So in this case, if you did, a drive-by shooting, or you were thought to have sold drugs out of your car, or were thought to have committed a robbery and used the car as a getaway vehicle, authorities are allowed to seize that vehicle and hold it for an unspecified amount of time. And this ruling basically says that they can't do that anymore. This is something that I think often has not just played those folks in the underclass, but I also think it obviously disproportionately affects African Americans. We're talking about Wayne County, so we already know that a lot of this is happening in the city of Detroit. And the fact that we're talking about in the millions of forfeiture revenues lets me know that there's a financial incentive for the county and for municipalities to keep this process in place. So they're going to fight this tooth and nail. There's going to be more battle around this, but the fact that the federal appellate court, so this has already been through the process, through the appeals process. This is how it's going to be, at least in Wayne County. I think this is a huge win for just the average human being. We always talk about innocent until proven guilty, but your stuff can't be innocent or guilty, so we can keep it for however long we feel like it. It just goes back to having the law, I think, match up with the ideals of what law enforcement should be. And it's definitely a step in the right direction, but this won't be the last we hear about it, that's for sure.
I know, Fletcher, you've got something to share in a minute, but I want to say that a lot of the corruption that you've been hearing in the newspapers and whatever of various governments, I don't want to just throw the city of Detroit under the bus, but there's been various issues, have been tied to things like this. Because whenever there's active money, there are going to be people around who want to grab their grubby little fingers on it. And this is an area that, I think it's good to see some attention, because a lot of people look at this and they go, oh, well, they must have done it anyway, blah, 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 blah. When in fact, sometimes that's not the case. In fact, 10 of the cases, according to this report, cars were seized under a suspicion of drug violation, but the police found no drugs, but still held on to them. So it's stuff like that. But Fletcher, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I had a situation like this happened to me. I was in a car accident on the east side of Detroit, right by the postal station. And when the police arrived to see what had happened, the lady who I was in an accident with, she was going 70 down a street and tore the front of my car up. She immediately got in her car. I was like, I'm fine. So while I was trying to like figure out like what's wrong with me, is the car okay? Am I okay? Is the lady okay? Or she had a dog? Is the dog okay? The police are like, hey, so we're gonna tow your car, okay? And I was like, wait, what? Why? They're like, well, do you have insurance? And I was like, yeah. And I unfortunately found out at that moment that all of my free tows were gone. They're like, we'll just tow your car for you, no big deal. And I was like, are you sure? And they're like, yeah. And they towed my car away, which ended up being totaled. So like I couldn't, if I gotten it back, I couldn't drive it. But I still had stuff in my car. So I called my attorney, and who happens to be my father, and he's like, yeah, we're gonna go get that back. And we went back the following day. That was on a Friday. Went back Monday to go get it. And they're like, yeah, no, this was involved in a crime. And we're like, what's the crime? Like, well, there was an accident. We need to determine who's at fault. So until then, you can't have it back. So after insurance determined that the lady was at fault and I was not the person who was, a criminal in that state, they still were like, well, we still have to determine, so we're gonna hold on to it. And I'm like, bro, give me my, like, I have the paperwork. They're like, our case is not over yet. So I had to like finally get an attorney and another attorney to like come up there to press charge. They're like, okay, here's your car back. Like, and not everyone has the ability to do that.
So you had to like legally threaten them.
Yes, I had to show up there with like written documents. Like, if you don't give me my car, someone's getting served today. Like, give me back. And like, I can't even drive my car to the lot.
It shows how aggressive you have to be to get justice.
Yeah. And like, the thing is like, I was lucky to have something where I could do that. Not everyone can do that.
Most
like, some
people
people
don't.
that's it. Their car is gone. Whatever you had in your car, and whether you could have your mother's ashes, you could have had a shirt that reminded you of your best friends. It's just gone because whatever. And then they're going to sell it at auction. And then whatever's in there, if it's not thrown away, is now someone else's. So like, it's just wild that in order to get stuff that belongs to you, whether you did something or not, in order to get it back, you have to like put pressure on people and like make them like with extra external force give you back stuff that's rightfully yours. And I don't understand why. I know possession is 9/10 of the law, but like there are things where it's like, this legally has paperwork to show it's mine. Why do I need to then get in your face and like almost serve you to get my stuff back?
Because money. Clearly.
Yeah, it's money.
There's contracts with and again, this is not just in Detroit, but there's contracts with the city that handles the towing. There's contracts with the lots that hold the cars, so they get money. It trickles all over the place. And so the more that you can do this to people who don't have the power or the know-how, because sometimes it's not even really about power or resources. Sometimes it's just ignorance. You just don't know that that's something you can do. People don't know that you can go and get a lawyer and potentially sue the police. They don't know that you could do that over having your, property taken from you. That's just how it ends up panning out. And, it's about the cash, man. We talking about millions of dollars here, man. Millions of dollars. We see the police auctions when it comes to those vehicles. A lot of those vehicles were not used in actual crimes. Those are just vehicles that they've had on these lots for years and years and years. And there's police auctions going on every month. In some places weekly. I lived not too far from a auto auction lot, and many of them were forfeiture vehicles. It's just one of those situations where, it's a lucrative business.
If you've got thoughts or experiences, 313-789-3211 or dailydetroit@gmail.com. All right, Norris Howard, you have a little factoid as a little break between now and our next couple of stories. A little factoid to share with us.
Speaking about cars, Insurify did a study on what are some of the most popular cars in America. And apparently in Michigan, the most popular vehicle is the Chevy Malibu. And I just thought this was very interesting because obviously we have always heard the stat that the Toyota Camry is the most popular car in America. And I think to a certain extent that may still be true. This is just the most popular, but if the Camry is number 2 in every state, then it's the most popular car in America. But the Chevy Malibu, I feel like it's a car I see so much that I don't even see it anymore. I feel like it just blends into the setting. It's like default car alongside stuff like, the Honda Civic. Like, it's just crazy, but interesting. I don't want to say good, because it is what it is, but interesting to see that the most popular car in Michigan is indeed an American-made car. Not shocking, but just an interesting tidbit.
There's only like 3 states that it is the most popular car, all in the Midwest. One I would say it's interesting is that it's not an SUV because all these automakers are pushing towards SUVs and trucks so hard. Now, the F-Series owns the entire middle of the country.
Yeah.
Like the entire middle of the country is owned by the F-Series and is a huge deal for Ford. But like everything else is like Accords and Civics and things like that. Like the coasts outside of Maine are pretty much all foreign brands.
Listen, people still live in cities. This is sort of the thing that we think about, is that the SUV phenomenon is, they're not necessarily sport utility vehicles. They're kid carriers, okay? The SUV has replaced the minivan, essentially. So you see them a lot in the suburbs. But if we're talking about in the cities, people are still driving smaller cars because they have less space. And they're driving midsize sedans a little bit still. I think midsize sedans eventually will be phased out. I don't think you're going to be seeing the Chevy Impala for too much longer.
Yeah, there's only one state it showed up. I think it was Minnesota.
Yeah, you're probably not going to be seeing cars like that for too much longer. I just don't think there's a market for them as much anymore. I would love if somebody who is a auto retailer or works in the industry to drop us a line and tell us what sort of trends they're seeing, because I find this stuff interesting. I just think in cities, people are still on cars. People still want smaller cars that they can fit into these really small driveways and parking spots. And the biggest thing is to save gas on. It's still very expensive to gas up these giant V6 and V8 kid carriers. So people are also still being economical as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's areas, though, that it's not all dense cities that are, Civics and Accords and that kind of stuff and Corollas. So it's interesting to me to see that the data shows of what's being insured. So this is what people are actually driving as opposed to new car sales.
Mm-hmm.
Fletcher, does this track?
I mean, just looking out my window like 20, 30 minutes ago, there were 3 Chevy Malibus on it. And there were 4. But I know my neighbor has one and he just left to go to his job. So like that tracks. That statement makes a lot of sense to me. I see Chevy Malibus more often than not. I'm not going to say like you walk and see 5 cars are all Chevy Malibus, but I will say like 1 in every like 9 cars I see in the Grosse Pointe, East Detroit area are Chevy Malibus. So yeah, hearing that makes some sense to me. Heck, I mean, my ex came to softball in a Chevy Malibu. I'm just realizing that right now. So.
I knew producer Cheyenne drove a Malibu for a long time too. So that's funny. I'd love to hear what people think.
I had an ex that also drove a Malibu. Maybe that's the official car of exes.
In a follow-up to a story we've been following, of course, Norris, I know you're on all of this, but I thought I'd bring up this update. It's a report from Axios Detroit's Annalise Frank, a really great reporter. The title of the piece is Detroit's Not So Red Hot Cannabis Real Estate Market. I'll put a link. I encourage you to go read it, but there was a quote I found specifically interesting, and it's from a local attorney, Scott Roberts, and he said that new grow development here is pretty much dead, despite the city's suitable empty warehouses. Roberts pointed out to the longer land use approval process in Detroit than elsewhere, and that demand is dropping off in the grow side because of the lower prices. It's a little different than retail. There seems to be more activity, as we've mentioned on the show. They mentioned that in the report, too, on the retail side. But, Norris, when this all came together, the idea was kind of bring that integrated thing to Detroit, and I got to ask, has Detroit missed the bus on this? Is this something where it's going to be a long time, if ever, that they're able to catch up with this?
Yeah, it's done.
Okay.
As they say in England, it's dead food, bruv. It's one of those situations where the city dragged their feet, and this may have been the intention of people who oppose the cannabis retail idea, the cannabis retail community, is they dragged their feet long enough to where the point where the demand finally leveled off and the suburbs can just have it. Some of the inner ring suburbs can just have it. Because the thing about Detroit is, and we know that the land development process in Detroit is more lengthy, but more than that is by having these stringent zoning laws, when it came to cannabis in the city, it basically made it impossible for anybody to be able to get a foothold on the recreational side. Now, there are some medicinal dispensaries within the city limits, and those are fine. They seem to be doing okay. I haven't seen them, being closed and so on and so forth.
And there's more applications in for this next round. So the retail side, there seems to be, but I wonder how many more rounds will be able to be supported.
Exactly. And obviously this first round, these are folks who are probably going to grab up the best locations. They're going to be grabbing up some of the best buildings that require the least amount of work. And it's just going to be much more difficult as time goes on for these retailers to be able to get land and buildings that can serve the purposes and serve the communities the way that they want to. And I think the thing that frustrates me the most about this entire process and what we're seeing is because Obviously, we knew that there was going to be a moment where at least cannabis development would slow down, right? That is just a natural process. Eventually, you get to a point where the McDonald's that are there are the McDonald's that's there. You know, it's going to be there for years and it's going to serve that community for years. It's just always been there and always will be. And I think where we are now with certain cannabis and marijuana dispensaries is those places have all taken root outside of the city and they're just going to be there. And some of these people who potentially would have shopped in city limits, they're just going to keep going to their usual place in Ferndale or Wayne or wherever because they've gained trust, they've become clientele, they like the products. And I just think it's going to be really difficult for any new recreational retailer to get a foothold within the city without massive marketing campaigns, which is already oversaturated in the city. And I just think it's going to be difficult moving forward. I just don't see a way forward without somebody sinking millions and millions of dollars into a brand. I just think it's taking way too long.
To build off that, I've seen some medicinal places, and a lot of the recreational ones I see now in the city of Detroit and like bordering other cities were medicinal, and then they happened to switch where they were able to switch from medicinal to recreational.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one that's, I won't say exactly where I live, but the one that's by my house on the east side, Cloud Cannabis, was strictly medicinal. And as you drive by, when it switched to retail, they put banners like, "Oh, you don't have to be medicinal to come in here. You can come in here whatever you want, such and such and such." Like they made sure to let people know. Again, Cloud is like I wouldn't say it's like McDonald's, but maybe it's more like the rallies where like they have like at least 7 or 8 or 9 places throughout the state of Michigan. So I don't think if it's like a corporation like that, I don't think they're going to have any issue opening up somewhere. But like, say you find like a chill place that's yours, that's like its own single entity. Like I don't think they'll be able to like recreate something else within the city just because of all the things that were just mentioned. I think to Norris's point where they said like this probably part of the reason why people who oppose has slowed it down a bit. What do they expect? Like at some point things stop being
The hot thing.
in demand and eventually they just become the norm. And when they become the norm, that's when they slip into being, oh, this is excess. We don't need all of this. I don't know what their next step is going to be. I mean, aside from like what was said, people going to other places that are like outside of the city or, you know, places that used to be medicinal that are now recreational. But in terms of like someone saying, I got a new spot, I know this new place I'm going to make for my own cannabis. I don't think you are, man, because it's not really a want for anything new at that point anymore. Like you got to pivot to something else.
I get all the retail focus, but this is about that integrated production, the grows, the behind the scenes. That was part of the whole jobs where it's not just the retail side, but it's about like taking care of the plant and all that other stuff for people in jobs that are not necessarily retail focused. There was supposed to be so much more industry around this. And really, this report's pointing to the stopping of that, which really concerns me from the equity and like the potential for jobs point of view.
Absolutely. And that was one of my main points is that, you know, the city should move as quickly as possible to try to get this together because there were different jobs that could have been created in the city. And obviously, I think the focus is a lot on the retail side because it's front facing. And I think it's a lot easier to sort of get those jobs. You don't necessarily have to have a degree in horticulture or anything like that. But what I'm frustrated with specifically on that point is that we have so much unused land and so many unused buildings that now will remain unused and will remain empty and vacant because the opportunity to be able to put at least a new industry, to be perfectly honest, I don't even care if it was marijuana or not. It could be anything. But the fact that nothing now is going to be in some of those spots, I can't help but feel like there was a massive sort of effort on certain individuals and certain interest groups within the city and within the legislature that would much rather just see the city continue to stagnate and see the city continue to kind of, you know, make it slow swirl, if you will, than to have marijuana be something that can help its revitalization. And I just wholly reject that. I wholly reject the idea that marijuana is some scourge of society because guess what? Almost everybody has at least tried it. And beyond that, is that the opportunity to create jobs was there. Decent paying jobs that didn't necessarily require 4-year degrees. That's really the types of jobs that we need to be thinking about. I think there's so much opportunity, especially now with online work for those who have 4-year degrees in postgraduate education. But if we're talking about the some college group, which is a large cohort in every metropolitan area, if we're talking about the some college group or people who may only have associate's degrees or didn't go to college at all, these are the types of jobs that we need in the city. And just not taking this opportunity continues to frustrate me, and it continues to confound me. And I'm just frustrated with how this whole thing is played out.
Well, the college graduate rate is very low in the city. And I just saw a report from U of M. Although there are a lot of positive economic indicators, still only 1/3 of working able adults have a living wage in the city of Detroit. So that tells me there's still a lot of economic work that needs to be done. And you're absolutely right about, ways that have on-ramps to go to the next thing. Maybe you're working at one place for a while while you're going to school or doing whatever. But like, if we're going to address this problem in a way that we lift up all Detroiters, we have to think about diverse ways of making money and diverse, because at the end of the day, such a low percentage of city residents have a degree. They're just shut out of a bunch of jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll say the reason why that I mentioned even focusing more on the retail is the point you guys are making about the growing and everything being extra jobs for people. That's definitely fair. But I mean, if you keep growing stuff, but you have no way of selling it, at that point,
It's lost product.
It's lost profit. And then you are now effectively damaging your business because now you have all this plant you're growing to take care of, and now it's to the point where you need to hire more people to take care of. You need to do it, and you still it's not going anywhere.
Well, and the price is so low per pound now, right? It's just dropped through the floor.
Exactly.
And finally, we're getting another chicken place in town with a high-profile name, guys. People are obsessed about this stuff. I want to mention it because, look, I saw the clickety-clicks and attention for Guy Fieri. Shaquille O'Neal's Big Chicken is coming to Michigan, 20 locations. They're going to start in Clio of all places, which is like more than an hour away from all of us. I think that's an interesting place to go.
I'm not going there.
I'm not going there.
Not going up for the Shaquille chicken? It's not worth it?
Nah, dog.
If it's, maybe, Madison Heights or, I'm sorry. That's too close to Oxford, and Oxford, just to drive out to Oxford, it's too far for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, not for chicken. Not for chicken, my boy.
They do say locations in Metro Detroit are coming, Ann Arbor, Lansing. So I think we'll eventually get one. Okay, you go to Ann Arbor to try it?
I'll go to Ann Arbor.
I mean, I'll go to Ann Arbor just because there's more to do there than say Clio.
Yeah.
That alone.
Here's the thing. I got a hot take, man. I don't understand why we don't have Raising Cane's yet. I'm not sure if you've ever been to Raising Cane's, but it's easily one of the top chicken tender places I've ever gone to ever. And they're everywhere but Detroit. Like, they're in Chicago, they're in Cleveland, they're all throughout the South, all throughout the West. I think the first time I had it was in the Dallas airport. Like, Raising Cane's slaps, and we need one in Michigan ASAP.
The only time I've had Raising Cane's was when I was in New Orleans, and I won't go as far as to say it slaps, but it was good. I enjoyed what I had. I enjoyed what I had.
It slaps. They don't just give you some little piece of crap like little biscuit. They just give you a whole ass half a loaf of butter bread. It's fantastic.
I mean, I'm not saying it's bad. Like, I think it was good. It's not my favorite chicken, but I think it's good. The closest Raising Cane's is in Perrysburg, Ohio. So if someone wants to drive to Perrysburg, Ohio, which actually, looking at this map, if you just, take 75 all the way down, yeah, you could make it there in the day and come back, and then it hopefully is up to your standard, because otherwise you drove really far.
Not for chicken.
No, see,
I'm
for
sorry.
me, I'll do it on a road trip. Next road trip I do, I will stop through a Raising Cane's because of what you guys are saying. Right now, I'm putting you on the spot. If you're going to get chicken right now in Metro Detroit, where are you two going? Right now, for lunch, after this recording, you get to go anywhere on the Daily Detroit dime. Where are you getting that chicken?
I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm still going to Popeyes.
Okay.
I know it's fast food, but I'm still it's delicious.
I go to Popeyes for a chicken sandwich for sure, but I'm going for chicken, probably crispy crunchy chicken.
You do
really
love that
crispy
place.
crunchy over Gus's?
Yeah, probably, yeah. I mean, there's 3 types of chicken I'll get, and this is, I know, like, it's getting to that point. But if I'm going for a chicken sandwich, Popeyes. If I'm going for, like, pieces of chicken, tenders or something like that, crispy crunchy chicken. Now, if I'm going for more of like this chicken is like roasting whatever, and it's like going to be more expensive than need be, Charlevoix has really good chicken wings, 8 or 9 different types. You get 4 for, I'm not going to say how much because people might turn their head, but it's enough to where like you're like, this is pretty good, but this is like, I'm getting this.
It's a little exorbitant.
I had a good day of work today. I got a bonus, so here's my chicken.
Actually, you know what? If I'm going for a chicken dish, like now if we're talking about beyond fried chicken, if we're talking about we're going to get chicken, I'm actually going to Baobab and getting the cuckoo.
Yeah, you know what? All right, yeah, that
is good. That is good. That is good.
That's
So
where
I
I'm
was
going.
surprised about the Charlevoix. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, the Charlevoix's chicken is good. It's just like I think it's 4 for like 10. I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember exactly the price. It's been a while.
It's fancy chicken, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, no, you get it. It's like you only get 4 pieces, and when you're done, you're like, yeah, I don't need more than 4.
So that's right at the Detroit border there at Charlevoix and like Alter, but like a little bit like east of Alter, just like right on that line. I don't remember what side of the line it's on, but it's right on that line.
It's on the Grosse Pointe side, just barely.
Okay. So good things to check out, and I have more places to go to. Both of you, thank you so much. You know what? I'm going to put Supershow in the label because this is what that is.
You're damn right.
So, Norris Howard, good to talk to you. Where can people find you?
You know where y'all can find me at Great Laker Nora. That's Great Laker Nori on Twitter, Threads, Instagram, wherever you like to do your social media in.
And Fletcher Sharpe, always good to talk with you. We will see each other on Saturday at Keyworth.
Yeah, sure.
And where can people find you?
If you're still using social media, Saint FDW, SAINT, not just ST, FDW, as it sounds. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky if you have the invite, but no one is there. Mastodon, if you still use
Blue Sky.
But,
Should we do a Blue Sky?
You want to go all the way to the right wing. I have one page on there just to see what's happening on there, but I don't go on there because people are very mean.
And I am Jer Stays, of course, The Daily Detroit on Twitter, Daily Detroit on Instagram. As always, thank you so much for listening every single day of the week to your Daily Detroit, where we're sharing what to know and where to go. Thank you to our members, patreon.com/Daily Detroit. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit.